Hey, good evening, guys. We're going to be doing some commentary for Mario Kart, well, Super Mario Kart. I've been wanting to do this game for a while because it was one of my favorite games that I used to play when growing up and stuff, and I've been itching for it for quite some time, I think. So I don't really think there is much to say about the original Mario Kart. It's a very short game. It only has three cups and two difficulties and stuff, but I felt that I wanted to do some commentary on it anyways. So I didn't really play a lot of racing games on the SNES and stuff. I didn't really feel that they were done particularly well or anything. Like, I tried playing games like F-Zero and it just wasn't really working out for me. It wasn't a bad game or anything, it's just, I feel that with the SNES, with that entire generation of consoles, they weren't really doing racing games well and such. So I didn't really start getting into racing games until, strangely enough, when the PlayStation hit. You know, my introduction to standard racing games was Gran Turismo, and I played the hell out of it and stuff, but before Gran Turismo there was Mario Kart. And Mario Kart, like, there's a lot of debate with it, I think. A lot of people seem to debate whether or not it's like a party game or like an actual racing game. You know, people like to think it's a party game because you shoot things at your enemies and stuff, and, you know, it's not very racer-ish. You know, you collect items, you shoot weapons at people, and, you know, it's just one of those things. Me, personally, I never really tried to stuff it into a category. If I had to, I would stuff it into the kart racing category because it's unique enough to have like its own distinction and stuff. It's not a hardcore racer like Gran Turismo. It's not a racing sim per se. It's not a street racing game like what you typically see with Midnight Club and things like that. It's in its own little category and stuff. It's not quite a party game, I don't think. You know, it doesn't really remind me of Mario Party too much, you know. It's literally in its own little category. You know, it's a kart racer. You know, back then we didn't really have a lot of these. Like, we have a lot of kart racers now, but Mario Kart continues to stand at the top. So, Mario Kart wasn't a terribly long game. You know, it took only about 40 minutes to do all the cups and stuff, and you know, it didn't really have a lot of content to it, but what it really made up for it was replayability. It was fun to just run through over and over and over again. It wasn't like the later Mario Karts where you could unlock parts and stuff and new drivers, things like that. You know, it really kind of stood on its own because it was quick enough that you could easily squeeze out a quick session of it. But it also had enough content to have like a decent amount of replayability. So that was one of the things I liked about Mario Kart. And then you could also race your friends and stuff, which was really nice, you know, so in many ways it could be considered a party game in that regard, just have everybody kind of race each other and stuff, but I still think that it has like its own distinction as just a kart racing game. You know, like, it's okay to give it its own category, I think. So I kind of struggled playing Mario Kart a little bit. When I was a kid, I used to play the hell out of it. Like, I really loved Mario Kart for what it was worth and stuff. I didn't really care that it didn't have a lot of content or anything. I just really liked the fact that I could pick it up, play it, and have fun with it. So the thing that was kind of weird for me with Mario Kart is I think later racing games kind of spoiled me a little bit because looking at later racing games and looking at Mario Kart, I realized how weird it was to actually drive around on it because it wasn't quite a 3D environment per se. Not in the typical sense. You know, the top looks squished a fair bit. You can't really see super far down the track, so you'd have to be reliant on the map on the bottom screen. And then going and playing it with low vision and stuff, there was definitely moments where I kind of sat there and I was like, holy crap, you know, the picture's really bad. Is it the game or is it just my vision? So I sat down a lot and I was sitting there and just looking at it, and I think it's about 50-50. I mean, yeah, my vision's pretty bad and stuff, but I keep forgetting how much pixel crunching is in the top screen. The bottom screen is not as severe, but the bottom screen I think has a better viewpoint with the map and stuff. Whereas the top screen, everything is kind of crunched down and stuff. So you can see with this particular course here, this is actually my favorite course, by the way. Out of the entire damn game, this is my favorite. I like anything that has like ghosts and stuff on it. I've always been a real huge fan of it, but when you go and you're staring at the top screen, you notice that you can't really tell what's coming up. I mean, you get like a rough idea for it after a while, after you've done so many laps and you get used to it, but initially with like these coins and stuff, they just kind of look like little yellow flickers. Same thing with the pickups for the weapons and stuff. Everything just looks so crunched to a certain lesser extent. So it's kind of, I feel it's kind of hard, you know, like I had to get used to the courses again and stuff. I actually had a blast filming like all of this and stuff. It was actually kind of bad because by the time I was done filming, I forgot that I was filming, and I kept playing the game. So I literally, long after this was done being filmed and stuff, I kept playing for like another hour and a half, even though the initial run's like only 36 minutes. So I was kind of laughing a little bit because I was sitting back and I was like, oh, you know, this game kind of got a hold of me there for a little bit. You know, I think we've all been there as gamers, you know, a game gets a hold of you because it's so much fun, and then you turn around and you look at the time, and then you realize it's like 2 in the morning and you feel kind of dirty, you know. So with Mario Kart, I literally forgot that I was making content because I was sitting down and I was enjoying myself so much that I legit forgot about it. So I had to cut off the entire ass end of it. But I feel that the first Mario Kart's a very solid game. We've had a lot of Mario Karts as time has gone on. Mario Kart, well, Super Mario Kart is not perfect by any means. I don't really particularly care for drifting on this version of the game. It feels like it overcorrects at times, whereas the later Mario Karts, they feel a lot more smooth with their delivery, and it feels like you have a little bit more control. With this one, it's like I can't turn too much, or else I'll literally overturn and then struggle to correct. But I feel that Super Mario Kart had a very solid foundation, considering it's like the first game in the series and stuff. The only thing I didn't really like about it is I really wish that they would have gone, made it more of a full screen thing for your racing view, and then I wish that the mini-map was like a little bit smaller. I feel like the mini-map's a little bit too big for what it is. I don't really find myself using the mini-map. When I was filming this, I was like right up next to the TV and stuff, so I was like never really hurting to figure out where I was at. You know, typically I'd play further away and like my vision just kind of tanks at that point, but with how far the picture degrades on the top screen when you're trying to see what's coming down the track, you know, you learn to get used to being up close with the TV and stuff, and I just wish that the top screen was kind of stretched out a little bit more. You know, it kind of looks like it's bit crushed a little bit on the top. So I think by going and actually kind of stretching it out a little bit, I think it would have not been as bad, but it's still really fun to play. So I typically use Yoshi. And when I was going and looking at all the other runs of Mario Kart on YouTube, a lot of them use Yoshi. Well, Yoshi is my favorite character, believe it or not. So when I was doing these runs, I decided to swap off with Peach, just for the sake of breaking up the monotony and stuff. This particular recording was actually a shoo-in. I had zero intent of doing it in the middle of the night, you know, like I had just wrapped up filming on Mario Brothers 3. I had filmed the, Super Mario All-Stars version of it. And I was kind of sitting back, I was waiting for the video to render. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, tonight's a good night to film some Mario Kart. I've been still struggling with Dino Crisis and Alone in the Dark and all that, and so I was like, you know what, we're going to go ahead, we're going to do some different games. We're going to go ahead and do Super Mario Bros. 3, and then later on in the evening as the video was rendering, I kind of looked around and I realized how short Mario Kart was. And I was like, you know, I could probably bang it out over the course of an entire evening. And I was pretty content with it and stuff. I didn't really initially have any intent to do any form of commentary for the game. My commentary videos have a tendency to do very poorly, believe it or not. Like, my commentary vids only get like 10, maybe 15 views. My long plays that don't have any sort of commentary typically get in between 2 to 400. But strangely enough, my commentary vids generate more comments, strangely enough, whereas my commentary-less vids generate more views and more thumbs up. So it's kind of strange in that regard. So I've been actually thinking about discontinuing the commentary lines of videos for a while because they just typically don't do well. You know, so what that tells me is that people maybe just don't enjoy them that much. And I really just don't want to make content that people don't enjoy, you know. So I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be doing videos with commentary. I know people like hearing like what goes on behind the scenes and stuff. A lot of people are like, oh, you know, this is how you did this and this, and you know, they get excited for it a little bit, but it produces a fair bit of stuff to interact with, but not really enough to justify the time. So when I was doing Mario Kart, I was going back and I was looking at it. Initial filming took a couple of hours. The first time I had tried filming Mario Kart, for some reason the app that I used to screen capture everything decided that it wanted to crash and then not even tell me. So I was halfway through, and then I noticed the icon that lets me know that it's filming wasn't there, so I had to go, stop, double check, found out that it crashed. So it took a couple of hours for initial filming, took about, I want to say 30 minutes to edit. There wasn't really much to edit, you know. It was a pretty smooth film. And then it takes a long time to actually go and do commentary for it, because I have to go, record it separately, then go, transfer it over to the computer I'm working on, line it up with the footage inside of the editor, and then adjust volume levels, things like that. It actually takes a large amount of time to go and produce a video with commentary on it. So when I go and do my regular long plays, it's not bad because I just go play the game, have a good time with it. You know, some games I'm good at, other games I'm really bad at, you know, but with commentary there's a lot more to it, it's a lot more involved. So when I was sitting down and looking at Mario Kart, I was like, oh, you know, should I do commentary for it? But the thing is with Mario Kart, the struggle of it is that there really just isn't much to say. You know, like, it's a very short game. It doesn't really have much to it. You know, I could talk about all the characters, I could talk about how fun the maps are. I mean, there is no doubt that it is a fun game. You know, it's not like me going and doing commentary for, like, Super Mario World or Super Mario Bros. 3, where I could just, you know, whine about certain levels or certain design choices they made. I mean, with Mario Kart, it's just a really, really nice, really smooth experience. There really isn't anything to bitch about, aside from maybe the quality of the top screen, but that's purely nitpicking at this point. So it was a little bit of an oddity, you know, because on one end I wanted to do the commentary, but on the other end I was kind of just sitting here going, okay, well, you know, it's only 36 minutes long. So how much could I possibly talk about with Mario Kart? I mean, could I compare Mario Kart to the rest of the Mario Karts in the series, see how it's good, it's bad, you know, everything else? It's just one of those things, I think. I mean, I don't regret filming it or anything. I had a good time with it. And I'm not really regretting doing the commentary for it either. Again, I'm kind of sitting here just kind of having a good time with it. I think the thing that I liked the most about Mario Kart is that they didn't try to do too much. Like, Mario Kart is not too much or too little. It's just the right amount, which is really strange. That's not something I really get to say too often. You know, it's like, it's very rare to get a game that is not too much, it's not too little, it's just right. So Mario Kart, it doesn't feel too long, it doesn't feel too short. Everything feels really bite-sized, which is very, very lovely, you know, because it makes it easier to pick it up and play it. I find that the mechanics for Mario Kart aren't overly complex. You know, like, you literally just use a couple of buttons to play the game. You know, they weren't trying to go and use up the entire controller or anything like that. You know, it's just a really nice experience. That's one thing that I kind of liked about a lot of Super Nintendo games that Nintendo was making way back then. They didn't try to do too much. You know, like, a lot of games back then were like, well, we want to do this and this and this and this and this. And, like, we saw a lot of games try to weasel in, like, a lot of really complex mechanics. Especially when you start squeezing in, like, RPGs and things like that. You know, ARPGs in general were pretty horrible in that regard. And then we had, like, a bunch of shooters, especially the isometric type of shooters. They all tried to have, like, really complex mechanics, but you look at a lot of Nintendo's works from this era, and a lot of them are very, very simple, with very basic controls. You know, like, I feel with Mario Kart, they tried to follow the design philosophy with the Mario games in general. You know, anybody can pick it up and play it. It's fun. It has basic multiplayer. There's just not a whole hell of a lot to really be disappointed with this game. And it's really refreshing because a lot of games these days, when you pick up a game, you know, it's either got, like, day one DLC, or the game's not finished, or it's got, like, a lot of bugs, and, you know, with Mario Kart, there's just none of that. You know, like, all of your favorite characters are there, for the most part. Like, all the characters they had up until that point. They even had characters from, like, other franchises and stuff, you know, like DK and everything else, which was really, really nice. You know, like, they didn't try to go overboard with it. And then the weapons feel like they actually have a really good balance as well. You know, like, you don't get red shells too often, you don't get green shells too often. The one thing that you're going to get a lot of, I find at least, is bananas. And I know it sounds kind of funny, but there are a lot of them, you know, and so you just drop it and you move on and stuff. I find that they didn't really recycle too much with Mario Kart either. You know, like with most games, especially racing games, they'll do the same course, but they'll do a reverse version of it. With Mario Kart, they tried really hard to literally just go, okay, well, you know, we're going to go ahead and have, like, the same theming, but we're going to try to swap it up a little bit. In this case, we have moles, as you can see. You know, it's really, really nice. I find that all the karts in the game handle really well. You know, I don't really have to drift too much. Like, I didn't really like how drifting was done in this game, so in order to do those tighter turns, it's easier just to lean off of A, make your turn, and then press A again, you speed back up. You know, I do have my fair bit of flops when going through these, going through these routes and stuff. You'll see them especially later, you know, especially with, like, the ice track and stuff, since it's solid white. I just couldn't make out anything, so I was bumping into stuff, and, you know, it's like, mistakes were made with this run, but I still enjoyed it. You know, I have no complaints, really. But no, I miss games like this. You know, I miss games where they say, okay, we're setting out to do something in particular, and we're going to do it the best that we can. Now, granted, Super Mario Kart is not flashy like F-Zero. A lot of people really liked F-Zero because it's really, really fast, and it's, you know, you can wreck your ship and stuff and everything else, but with Mario Kart, they kind of dialed it back a bit. They toned it down, and they just focused on, like, a nice playable experience that everybody could enjoy. There's not too many people I know that do not enjoy Mario Kart. Like, I've met plenty of people that cannot stand, like, Mario Party. But for all of the other people I've met, you know, they've loved Mario Kart. Like, I've yet to find what we would effectively call a hater. And I think that's great. You know, I think that it's great that a game like this can age super well and still be extremely playable in the modern day. Not all old games actually aged super well. You know, Mario Kart's one of them that just aged really, really well. You can still pick it up, you can still play it. It's not too easy, it's not too hard. I was gonna do the 100cc version of these races and stuff, but my vision couldn't keep up with it. I tried a couple times. I was like, you know, let's go ahead and do 100cc, it's gotta be fast. You know, on the later Mario Karts, I just love how fast the courses can get. it devolves into pure chaos at times. So, with this particular route, I was kind of struggling with it because there's like a lot of gray on screen, and the gray and the red kind of have a tendency to blur together. And since everything's really low definition, it's kind of, I kind of make the mistake sometimes of going and falling, as you can see right here, in these pits and stuff, because I'm thinking, oh, there's a little bit of gray there because everything's a lot more blurred than what it should be. So, but I just get up and keep on driving and stuff. A lot of these races, you'll see, sometimes I'll come in second place. You know, and Mario Kart's fun, but it has like its moments where sometimes I'll get hit by a weapon at the end, or sometimes I'll run into the wall, which does happen. And then I feel that they could have done the whole reset of your cart a little bit better, especially like when Lakitu picks you up and resets you and stuff. It wasn't like the later Mario Karts where Lakitu has like a certain amount of time that he will drop you off back on the track again. With Super Mario Kart, a lot of the times, it'll take a while. You know, like, you really get punished for it. And I didn't really like that too much, but I think it gives you kind of, like, more incentive to try to get better at the course. You know, like, I think that Nintendo was kind of pushing it a little bit, where they were like, okay, well, if you fall off the course, or whatever the case may be, you know, you're going to have to go, and you're going to have to live with that, essentially, you know. That's one thing I noticed with a lot of Nintendo's games, is that they try to, with design philosophy, they try to go and push you to be a better gamer. I never really felt that any of Nintendo's games were over the top hard. I never felt like I was struggling with it like I did with Dark Souls and Kingsfield and stuff, but there's always a very, very steady and persistent challenge with a lot of Nintendo's games, and as you can see right here, you know, I go and I take the dunk, and then it instantly drops me in the 4th place. Like, I wasn't really doing too hot with this race, but I at least tried. But, as I was saying, with a lot of Nintendo's games, and with a lot of how their design philosophy is, they try to give you a pretty persistent challenge. It doesn't feel like it's super easy, it doesn't feel like it's over-the-top hard or anything like that. They try to really nail this sweet spot. Like, they want you to get better, but at the same time, they don't want you to, you know, just compulsively struggle with it. And we've been kind of seeing this with their games since, like, 1990, all the way up to, like, the 2020s. And I think it's a good design philosophy to have, and it's one of the reasons why I appreciate these games so much. You know, like, I always feel, with Bowser up my ass all the time, I always feel like there's a good challenge there. And, you know, sometimes I don't do well, but it always pushes me to get better. Like, I hadn't touched Mario Kart in upwards of easily 20 years. And so when I was breaking back into it and stuff, I was like, oh man, you know, there's a little bit of heat on these tracks. So I had kind of sat there for a while, and I was like, yep, not too hard, not too easy, right where it needs to be, and I really appreciate that, I think. I don't think this game's ever going to go out of style either. Like, actually thinking about it now, it's one of those games that feels kind of timeless. It's like Doom. They nailed the formula so well the first time that it didn't really have to be modified much, or it really just doesn't get that much better. You know, like, with the Mario Brothers games, like the first one, I don't really like going back to it because everything is so rough, and a lot of the design choices were just really bad and did not age well. Mario Brothers 2 wasn't really that great either. A lot of half-baked ideas that just didn't really pan out well. And then I feel that they didn't really start getting good until 3. But with Mario Kart, it was already good right off the bat. They already had a good formula. They knew what they wanted to do. All they had to do was tweak and tune. Maybe work on the drifting a little bit, adjust certain weapons, introduce new weapons. I think the one thing that I've always loved about Mario Kart as time has gone on is the ability to craft your cart. And then Mario Kart on the DS, it was really nice because it was like, you know, pair up a character with a cart if you're choosing, and you could have carts with, you could create carts and driver combos with really, really insane stats and stuff. So it's been really nice to see Mario Kart grow as time goes on, and they're doing really interesting things with it. I still enjoy playing Mario Kart on the Switch and stuff, and it's just a really, really nice, really seamless experience. It's nice to be able to come back over 20 years later and just pick this game up, start playing it, and just really, really enjoy it for what it is. They seem to have kept the numbering system the same for, well, ever. Literally, it's never changed. You know, it's just Mario Kart is completely damn near perfect. You know, every single release they do, they try to do something new, but it never really feels like it encroaches on existing mechanics too much. It never really feels like anything new they do. They try to go and break the game with it, which is really, really nice. So we're moving into the Star Cup race and stuff. I actually really, really like this track. Well, I mean, it's kind of a track, kind of not. You know, like, it's nice that they have, like, clumps of land that you can drive around on and stuff, but it's just kind of weird how the way that they designed it, it's like there's a ton of water all over the place, and there's, like, little clumps here that actually slow you down a fair bit. This track doesn't really feel like it has much to it. It's literally just small strips of land in the middle of the sea that you can literally go and drive over and stuff, and we've seen a lot of derivatives of this particular map as time has gone on. They've remade it a bunch of times. You know, they either have remade it or they have done a derivative of it. That's one thing I've kind of noticed with a lot of these Mario Kart games is that they always either have derivatives or reintroductions. Like I know with Mario Kart 8 right now, they have the booster, was it Booster Course Pass? And it brings in a ton of older maps and stuff, so this one was squeezed in a fair bit, which was nice, and it's just nice to see that a lot of these older maps are kind of getting second lives a fair bit. I feel that they kind of deserve them. Like, it was good for the time when they released this game and stuff. You know, like, it was very good, it was very playable, and all the maps were really, really nice. But I feel that Mario Kart really didn't start really coming into its own in terms of technical capability until the, I really want to say until the DS version, Mario Kart DS. I mean, we had other versions of Mario Kart, like Mario Kart 64, but it didn't really feel like they were focusing on the technical aspect of it too much. Like, with Mario Kart 64, it felt like they were trying to do a play-it-safe sequel. Whereas the DS version, they tried to do everything in true 3D and stuff, and then they worked on how the karts handled, and then we saw the difference with the 3DS version is like you could go and pick out your character and then pick out a kart to go with it, and Mario Kart's always evolving, and I greatly appreciate that. And then we had like other things like Mario Kart Double Dash, which introduced a bunch of different mechanics as well, most of them weapon related, with how everything is handled, and I really liked it. The only Mario Kart that I haven't played was the one on the Wii, and I don't know, I never picked it up because I felt that I wouldn't be able to drive effectively on the Wii with the motion controls. I felt that I would be bad at it, you know. Found out later that you can use a pad on it. Really embarrassed. So I think this particular map right here is the first one where it didn't really feel like it feels like an okay map, but some aspects of it just don't really work out, like how skinny the road gets sometimes and stuff. Like, they really try to make sure that, you know, you're aware of what happens when you wander off into the dirt and stuff, how slow you get. And then you got the mud on top of it, which screws around with your traction a fair bit. I mean, the map itself is okay. It's not the best, it's not the worst, it's just there. But they would keep this specific design philosophy, I noticed, for like the rest of the games. Like the whole, if you wander off the track, you're going to be super slow, and if you stay off the track, you know, you're not going to have to really worry about whether or not you're going to win the race, because it's simply not going to happen. So a lot of the base mechanics that they had established in the first game would go off and be present in the other games as well, which was really, really nice. So I screwed up on this map a lot. Like, to say that I screwed up on it kind of doesn't do it justice. Because there's just so much stuff going on. I think that the map itself is okay, but where they, well, not so much where, but how they set up the blocks of ice really just did not feel great. Like, when they're in straight lines, it's alright. You know, it's not like the worst stuff ever, because you can kind of squeeze between it, but I noticed certain aspects, what they have a tendency to do with this map is certain areas they just kind of pile the blocks on top of each other, and a lot of them are asymmetrical and stuff, so it makes it kind of hard to go and maneuver around it. And then we had the added issue of everything's white and like an off-brand baby blue, so when I was going and filming this particular section, I was like, God, I'm gonna look so bad while I do it. And it gets kind of embarrassing sometimes, you know, it's really weird to go and breeze through the rest of the courses pretty easily, and then like one course in general, you just struggle with it like super hard because you can barely see. And then there was a couple of times on this map that I had goofed up as well, so the way that I have my controller set up, I finally got a controller to work with the SNES emulator properly, so it has that nice frosty response time that I want. I was trying to use a Bluetooth pad, but the delay was kind of ridiculous between button presses and then the actual registration on the screen. So when I was going and doing this particular run of Mario Kart, it's like the response was there, but a lot of the time, like, the vision wasn't. So there's times where you see me bump into walls, there's other times where you see me just run into other characters, and it's a little bit weird. You know, it was a little bit of an embarrassment for me, I think. You know, because when I do these, a lot of people I noticed, at least from what I had gotten in my mailbox, a lot of people like to see long plays or let's plays of people being like super good at the game all the time. And while I do try my best with a lot of these, I'm not like good with everything that I pick up. Like, I know at the time of releasing this video, because we're still in September at the time of recording this and making it and everything else, I know that the Resident Evil titles that I had done, they were done remotely well, but with Mario Kart I kind of struggled a fair bit. So some games I'm really decent with, other games not so much. And so there was a point when I was filming Mario Kart where I was like, okay, I'm really struggling on this particular map. I know that people often like to see people that are super good at the game. Do I want to cancel this run and just refilm it? And I don't know, like, I thought about it a fair bit. You know, like, it's something that is on my mind quite often, I think. You know, like, I like to have my runs be raw for the most part. You know, like, I like to show off all the mistakes and everything else, but I think there's a little part of me that kind of looks at my flops a fair bit, and I get really embarrassed with it, because I was like, okay, all these other courses went down super smooth and stuff, you know, why is this one such a hazard? And then you go back, you look at it, you're like, okay, well, you're struggling to see X, Y, and Z, and so it's like, okay, well, do I want to cut the footage, like do the race over again, cut the footage, and then insert it, or do I want to keep the footage raw? And so, like, I try to keep the footage as raw as possible. I know some games I really struggle with, I will have to do a cut, like Resident Evil 3 was one of the ones, well, it's like the only one that actually has a cut on it. And that was because I had encountered a bug doing the clock puzzle, and I was on it for damn close to 40 minutes before I realized, hey, this is a bug. So I wound up cutting it for the sake of time, like doing a simple transition and stuff. But deep down I didn't really care for it too much, because I like to show the entire process, so when I wound up going and doing the commentary version of it, I just left all the footage raw. But I like to have, I think at least with games like this, I like to have the best experience filming it that I can. You know, like I don't like the viewer to go and look at it and be like, oh my god, look at how horrible this is. You know, it kind of stabs my ego a little bit, you know. Like what ego I do have, it does stab at it. And then sometimes, like I know with this particular map, I went ahead and had the controller replaced. And with the way that it's set up, I went with a 2.4 gigahertz pad that had like shoulder buttons and everything else because I wanted to use it for PlayStation games as well. Give my Switch pad a little bit of a break. And so the shoulder buttons for SNES games, I know that L2 and R2 are like rewind and fast forward. So sometimes when I'm going and doing these runs and stuff, I go and I accidentally, my fingers are like really huge and really bony. So sometimes with the way that they curl around the gamepad, it'll accidentally lean on fast forward with the way that I grip it with my hand. And so sometimes you'll see the footage speed up unexpectedly, and it's like, I'm not using a mushroom, guys. I just accidentally pressed fast forward. So sometimes you see the footage just speed up really, really fast, and like I go back and I look at it, and like, okay, do I really want to go and, you know, do I want to edit that out, you know, or do I want to do it again? And I think making these videos is, for me at least, has been an exercise in accepting my mistakes. And so, like, these videos aren't perfect, not by a long shot. And strangely enough, I'm okay with that, but I look back at it sometimes and, you know, I look at, like, other people and, like, the content they try to create and stuff, and, you know, it's always, like, really clean and, like, super perfect and stuff, and then I look at mine and, like, they have, like, little oddities here and there, and they have, like, little mistakes that happen, and, you know, I kind of, I don't know, I kind of like it a little bit, as weird as that sounds. Like, I actually like the fact that there are mistakes here and there. I find that it gives it character. You know, somebody's watching, like, oh, they screwed up here. So, but the more I do these videos, the more I kind of accept it, but at the same time, the more I learn to be better at it. So, but for all those that came out and stuff that showed up for this rendition of Mario Kart, I greatly appreciate your time. I was checking my stats the other day, and I'm averaging, finally, 1,000 views a month. I think that's great. Between all the videos that I post and stuff, I'm really glad that I'm averaging 1,000 now. So for all those that continuously come out and stuff, I wanted to say thank you for supporting me, thank you for viewing, you know, for all those that leave comments and stuff, thanks for that. I try to reply to all of them in my off time, so I hope you had a good time, and I'll see y'all later.